I heard my name through the wall. That's what stopped me. Not the voices, not the laughter. My name spoken the way people say it when they think no one's listening. I'm Wade Calloway, 54 years old, senior infrastructure architect at Hargrove Financial Group. I'd been with the company 8 years, built their entire network from scratch. 9 regional offices, all connected through a proprietary integration platform I designed on my own time, using my own methods. Before I got there, their systems crashed twice a month. After, they ran for 14 months straight without a single major outage. It was 8:14 p.m. on a Monday. The air conditioning had cut out an hour earlier, and the building was quiet in that heavy, stale way that only happens after everyone else has gone home. I was still at my desk finishing a security update on the Eastern Region servers. Nobody asked me to stay. Nobody ever did. That was just how the job worked. The executive conference room shared a thin wall with the corridor outside my workspace. I'd eaten lunch in that corridor 100 times. Never once heard anything through the wall. That night I did. He flagged the pension accounts again. Holden Marsh, our CFO, that flat, nasal voice was unmistakable. Third time, he's getting too close to the actual transfers. A pause. Then Rhett Osborne, chairman of the board, slow and deliberate. Wade built this whole system, but that doesn't mean he needs to know what's running underneath it. I stopped typing. Terminate him Friday, Marsh said, effective immediately. Lock him out before he stands up from the chair. I sat there completely still, hands over the keyboard, not touching anything. 8 years. I'd poured 8 years into that company. I'd passed on a job offer from a competitor 2 years earlier. Better title, better pay, because I thought I had a real future at Hargrove. I was 3 months away from vesting the final block of my stock options, roughly $40,000 that would have covered my son's first year of college without touching our savings. Briggs Elmore, HR director, spoke up. What about systems continuity after he's gone? Tara can handle it, Osborne said. Tara Fenn was Osborne's niece. 27 years old, she'd been shadowing me for 6 weeks. Smart enough to take notes, not experienced enough to understand what she was writing down. I'd answered every question she asked, never thought twice about it. She'll need time to get up to speed, Sawyer Dunn, our CTO said carefully. She'll figure it out, Osborne said. Fresh perspective, half the cost. Guys like Wade are a liability after 50, too expensive, too set in their ways. Then the laughter, quiet and casual, the kind of laugh you let out when you're talking about something that doesn't matter. Like they were discussing a piece of equipment past its warranty date. I stayed at my desk for another 30 seconds. Let them keep talking. Heard them shift to a golf weekend someone was planning. Then I closed my laptop, picked up my coffee, and walked back to my workspace like nothing had happened. Because here's what they didn't know about the system I'd built. 3 years earlier, the executive team had blamed me for a botched accounting rollout that wiped 3 days of transaction records across all 9 offices. It wasn't my fault. I knew it wasn't my fault. But I was the only technical person in the room, so the blame landed on me. After that, I built in a safeguard. Every 72 hours, the core network required my personal authentication key, a cryptographic signature embedded in the system's root protocol. Without it, the system didn't crash, it didn't lock up, it did something much more specific. All the partitions I'd constructed to keep executive communications siloed away from the company's regulatory oversight channels would simply dissolve. Every email, internal message, and voice transcript generated at the executive level would begin routing the way the system was originally designed to route, visible to every compliance layer connected to it. I'd told Osborne about the authentication requirement when I built it. He called it paranoid and excessive. He never asked how it actually worked. Nobody did. That was Tuesday morning. I came in early Wednesday and got to work. First thing, I backed up every audit log in the system that I had legitimate access to. I had created those logs. There was nothing improper about keeping copies. I transferred everything onto an encrypted personal drive and took it home that evening. Nolan Frey, our IT director, drifted over to my desk around 10 a.m. He leaned against the partition and watched my screens for a moment. Pulling some long hours lately, he said. Performance tuning, I told him. Reducing latency between the regional offices. Technical enough to sound plausible, vague enough to mean nothing. He nodded once and walked away. Thursday, Osborne himself came by. That almost never happened. In 8 years, I could count on one hand the number of times he'd walked through the technical floor. He stopped at my desk, leaned against the partition with his arms crossed, and said, "Heard you've been putting in extra time. That kind of dedication deserves recognition. Just doing my job," I said. I gave him the same smile I'd been giving him for 8 years. Friday at 4:15, I watched the executive team gather in the boardroom through the glass wall. At 40:28, I entered a single command into the system. The 72-hour timer started. At 4:30, I walked in, Briggs ran the termination script, organizational restructuring, immediate staff reductions. He delivered it the way people deliver bad news they've rehearsed too many times. I let him finish without saying a word. Sawyer slid a credential form across the table. I signed over my primary password without hesitating. I just didn't mention the authentication key. It never came up. They didn't know to ask. Any questions? Osborne said. He was watching my face, waiting for something. The argument? Maybe. The breaking point? Just one, I said. When did you realize I was the only person in this building who actually understood how your systems work? Nobody answered. Security walked me out 4 minutes later. I counted hours in my head the whole drive home. That was all it took. The weekend was quiet. Saturday morning, I went grocery shopping, came home, made lunch, watched a game in the afternoon. Saturday night, I slept better than I had in months. Sunday morning, I made coffee and sat on the back porch. My son had called the night before, excited about his dorm assignment. I didn't tell him what had happened at work. Didn't want to worry him before I knew how things would land. He had enough on his mind. At 11:06 a.m., the doorbell rang. Holden Marsh was standing on my front step. He was in a Sunday shirt, no jacket, and he looked like he hadn't slept since Friday. His hair was off. His collar was uneven. In 8 years, I had never once seen the man without every detail of his appearance accounted for. The systems are behaving strangely, he said. Authentication errors. Routing loops. Tara can't figure out what's happening. I leaned against the doorframe and didn't invite him in. That's unfortunate, I said. We need you to come in and take a look. He straightened up, tried to find the tone he used in budget meetings. We'll double your salary. Triple it. Just come in and tell us what's wrong. I thought about the $40,000 in stock options I'd lost 3 days ago. I thought about the 3 separate reports I'd filed over the previous 8 months flagging irregular movements in the pension accounts, reports that Marsh himself had told me were standard financial management and that I should focus on my assigned tasks. I thought about the laughter coming through that thin wall on Monday night. You fired me, I said, with a security escort.
Remember, that was a miscommunication, he said. Rhett acted too quickly. We need you back, Wade. Name your number.
I looked at him for a moment. I'll need something in writing first, a formal acknowledgement that my termination was unjustified and that I was let go without cause. He didn't even blink. He pulled out his phone, typed for about 90 seconds, and had it sent to my email before I'd finished my coffee. A man that deep in a crisis will sign anything that buys him the next 10 minutes. Get in the car, he said. I grabbed my jacket, left my personal laptop at home, kept my phone in my chest pocket, voice memo running. Ohio is a one-party consent state. Recording a conversation you're part of is completely legal. I'd looked it up Friday night. The drive over was 22 minutes. Marsh spent most of it on his phone, telling people I was cooperating. I watched the city go by and said almost nothing. When we arrived, Tara met us at the elevator. She looked pale and was holding a printout covered in error codes she clearly didn't know how to read. I had answered probably 40 questions for her over those 6 weeks. She'd seemed grateful at the time. Thank you for coming, she said. I nodded and followed Marsh into the boardroom. The room had transformed since Friday afternoon. Laptops covered the table, extension cords ran across the floor. Sawyer Dunn was on the phone in the corner, voice low and tight. Rhett Osborne stood near the window with his arms crossed, looking at me the way people look at a doctor who just walked into the emergency room. Martina, he started, then caught himself. Wade, thank you for coming in. I sat down at an open workstation. They gave me full admin access without hesitation, which told me everything about how bad it had gotten. I typed slowly, ran diagnostics. I already knew the results of. Let them watch. After about 3 minutes, Sawyer came off the phone and stood behind me. Well, what's wrong with it? Nothing's wrong with it, I said. The system is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Osborne stepped forward. Then why is everything routing externally? I kept my eyes on the screen, because the partitions that were blocking it from doing that no longer exist. I checked the clock in the corner of the monitor, 4:21 p.m. In about 7 minutes, 6 months of executive-level communications are going to be fully visible to every regulatory oversight channel this system is connected to, including the correspondence related to $85 million in pension fund transfers. The room went very quiet. Marsh's voice dropped to almost nothing. Fix it right now. We'll give you whatever you want. I can't fix it. I stood up from the chair. It's irreversible once the sequence is initiated. I designed it that way after you blamed me for the accounting rollout 3 years ago. No override, no backdoor. You're going to destroy this company, Osborne said. No, I said. You did that. I just stopped hiding it for you. Then Marsh said something I hadn't expected. He lowered his voice, glanced toward the door, and told me there was another option. The company would wire $150,000 into any account I named by Monday morning. All I had to do was sign an NDA and tell them I'd made a mistake. Technical error, corrected and resolved. He slid a document across the table. I looked at it. Then I looked at him. My phone was still recording in my chest pocket. No, I said. At 40:28 p.m., every screen in the room started throwing red. Tara said something I couldn't hear over the alarms. Sawyer swore and grabbed a laptop. Marsh went still in a way that had nothing to do with calm. Osborne turned toward the window and didn't turn back. I walked toward the door. Nobody stopped me this time. I drove home with the windows down. Stopped at a diner on the way, ordered coffee and a sandwich, sat in a corner booth for about an hour. Nobody called, not yet. By the time I got home, it was past 6 p.m. I sat at the kitchen table and transferred the audio recording from my phone to the encrypted drive. Clean copy, timestamped. Then I wrote a short summary of what had been offered and what had been said, dated it, and saved it alongside everything else. My son called around 8. We talked for 20 minutes about his roommate situation and whether he'd need a mini fridge. I told him probably yes on the fridge. I still didn't say anything about work. Monday morning came with noise. I had 14 missed calls by the time I woke up. 9 from numbers I didn't recognize, 3 from Sawyer, 2 from a law firm I'd never heard of. There were 22 text messages and 4 voicemails. I listened to the voicemails in order. The last one was from Osborne himself, left at 2:31 a.m. His voice had lost the chairman tone entirely. He just sounded tired. He said they wanted to find a resolution, that there had been mistakes on all sides, that he hoped I would be reasonable. I set the phone face down on the table and made breakfast. At 9:15 a.m., a federal agent called from a number in the Washington, D.C. area code. She identified herself as Paige Holloway, director of the Financial Crimes Task Force. She asked if I had time to meet that afternoon. I said yes. The government building was the kind of place designed to feel deliberately unremarkable. Gray carpet, fluorescent lighting, a lobby that smelled like recycled air. Holloway met me herself at the security desk. She was probably in her mid-50s, direct handshake, no small talk. She walked me to a conference room on the 4th floor and closed the door. Mr. Calloway, she said, sitting across from me. What you've uncovered is one of the larger pension fraud cases we've seen come through this office in the past several years. But before we go further, I need to understand exactly how you did what you did. I walked her through all of it, the system architecture, the authentication protocol, how the partitions had worked, and what happened when they were removed. I explained each layer clearly and answered every follow-up question she had. We were in that room for a little over 2 hours. At one point, she leaned back and said, "So you didn't technically leak anything?" "No," I said. The system reverted to its baseline state. The barriers I'd built to protect their privacy were gone. The underlying routing did what it was always designed to do. She studied me for a moment. That's a careful distinction. It's an accurate one. She slid a folder across the table. Open it. Inside were printed copies of my 3 flagged reports. The ones I'd filed over the previous 8 months, complete with original timestamps and the delivery confirmations showing exactly who had received them and when. "Where did these come from?" I asked. "The authentication reset didn't just dissolve the communication partitions," she said. "It also restored access to suppressed internal documents, including these which had been deliberately buried by Marsh and Osborne." I looked at the timestamps. Every detail matched what I remembered filing. "You're more thoroughly vindicated than you probably realized," Holloway said. She told me the whistleblower protection filing would go through that same day. The civil suit Hargrove's board had filed against me, naming me as a participant in the scheme, would be countered immediately. She gave me contact information for 3 attorneys who specialized in exactly this kind of case and told me they were already expecting my call. Before I left, she mentioned that the task force had been looking for people with my particular background. Someone who understood how financial systems worked from the inside. Someone who could recognize patterns that outside investigators would miss. She slid a business card across the table. I pocketed it and didn't say anything yet. The next 2 weeks moved fast. Hargrove stock dropped 52% over 4 trading days before regulators halted it entirely pending investigation. Rhett Osborne was arrested on a Wednesday morning. 4 other executives were indicted by the end of the week. Federal agents spent 3 days in the building with equipment carts and evidence boxes. Holden Marsh was released on bail while awaiting formal indictment. He lasted 11 days before he tried to run. He made it as far as Vancouver before federal agents caught up with him. The extradition back across the border took 6 weeks. Gil Stover found me at a diner near the old office about 3 weeks after everything broke open. He was 67 years old, retired accountant, had worked at Hargrove for 22 years before Osborne's group came in and restructured the place. He'd heard my name connected to the story and tracked down the diner through a mutual contact. He didn't say much, just shook my hand and held it for a second longer than a normal handshake. "They're saying you saved the retirement accounts for over 3,000 people," he said. I told him I'd just done what made sense at the time. He nodded slowly, like that was exactly the answer he'd expected. "That's what integrity looks like," he said. "Most people don't see it much anymore, so they don't recognize it when it shows up." He left a tip that was twice the size of his check. I sat there after he left and finished my coffee. Outside the window, I could see the upper floors of the Hargrove building 2 blocks over. Same building. Different company now, in every way that mattered. 2 days after meeting with Holloway, I called her back about the job offer. "I appreciate it," I told her, "but I'm going to pass." A short pause. I figured she said, "You're not really the government type." She wasn't wrong. I'd spent the previous evening sitting at the kitchen table with a legal pad, writing down what I actually wanted to do next. Not what I thought I was supposed to want. Not the title, not the badge, not the validation of working for a federal agency, just what made sense for where I was at 54 years old. I wanted to build things that worked. I wanted clients who hired me because they needed someone who understood their systems at a level nobody else did. I wanted to set my own hours and pick my own problems, and I wanted to make sure that what happened at Hargrove couldn't happen somewhere else the same way. That was enough to start. I filed the paperwork for a single-person consulting firm the following week. Callaway Infrastructure Group, nothing fancy. A registered business name, a separate bank account, and a website with 4 sentences on it. I put my phone number at the bottom. The first call came 3 days later. It was Lacey Morrow, a trustee representative from the Hargrove Pension Fund Board. The board had been placed under independent oversight as part of the federal settlement terms, and they were looking for someone to audit and rebuild the company's internal systems from the ground up. Proper architecture, real compliance integration, no artificial partitions between the people managing the money and the regulators watching them do it. She asked if I would be interested in taking it on as a consulting engagement. I told her I'd think about it overnight. I already knew the answer. But I'd learned a long time ago that decisions you sit with for a night tend to hold better than decisions you make in the moment. The next morning I drove to the Hargrove building for the first time since the Sunday I'd walked out of the boardroom. Different security guard at the desk. Different energy in the lobby. People move through the space a little more carefully now, the way people do when they're not entirely sure what the rules are yet. I signed in, took the elevator up, and met Lacey Morrow in a conference room on the 6th floor. She had the contract printed and waiting. We went through it together, line by line. The scope was clear. The timeline was reasonable. The rate was exactly 3 times what Hargrove had been paying me as a full-time employee. I signed on the last page and slid it back across the table. On the way out, I stopped in the corridor outside my old workspace. Someone had already cleared out the desk. There was a plant on it now. One of those small potted things people put in offices to make them feel less like offices. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds. Then I walked to the elevator and went home. Osborne's sentencing came about 4 months later. I attended. Sat in the back of the courtroom with no particular expectation of how it would feel. The judge was direct. He said the defendants had abused positions of extraordinary trust to enrich themselves at the expense of working people who had spent decades building that company. He said the court viewed that with particular severity. Osborne got 12 years. The other 4 executives received sentences ranging from 4 to 9 years. Full financial restitution was ordered across the board. When it was over, Osborne was led out past the gallery. He glanced up once and saw me sitting there. Something moved across his face. Not regret exactly. More like the look of a man who had just fully understood something he should have understood a long time ago. I didn't say anything. There was nothing left to say. Marsh was still working through extradition proceedings in Vancouver. His sentencing would come later. I went back to work. Over the following months, the Callaway Infrastructure Group picked up 3 more clients. A regional insurance company in Indiana that had inherited a mess of legacy systems from a merger. A mid-sized logistics firm in Cincinnati that had been hit by a ransomware attack and needed everything rebuilt from scratch. And a healthcare network in Western Ohio that needed someone to integrate 6 different record systems that had never been designed to talk to each other. None of it was glamorous. All of it was exactly the kind of work I was good at. I kept one thing from my old desk at Hargrove. A ceramic mug they'd given me for my 5-year anniversary. No bonus that year. No raise worth mentioning, just the mug with the company logo on it. I use it every morning. It reminds me that the most dangerous move isn't the loud one. It's the quiet one nobody saw coming because they never bothered to understand what you were actually doing. At 54, they decided I was too old, too expensive, too set in my ways. They handed my job to someone younger and cheaper and walked away feeling like they'd made a smart business decision. They had no idea I was the only person holding the whole thing together. If you've been written off by people who never took the time to understand what you were worth, this one's for you. Most of the time, the men who get pushed aside in their 50s aren't finished. They're just done pretending the system is going to reward them for staying quiet. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is stop building barriers around other people's secrets and let the truth do what it was always going to do anyway. You don't have to blow anything up. You just have to get out of the way.